Okay, so it may seem a little unusual starting a funeral with a pre-recorded speech from a field. But then again, to my mind, it's kind of fitting, as Mum was never one to go for the orthodox approach. And as a good friend Gabby says, the apple never falls very far from the tree. I thought it best to start where it all began, Daisy Farm. It's been Mum's home for nearly all her life, and Mum grew up here with my granddad and gran, and the family moved back, and my mum cared for my grandfather in his later life here. Mum was quick to tell anybody who called Daisy Farm a house that it wasn't a house, it was a home, and there to be lived in. Despite being fairly large, there are only two rooms that Mum really cared about. Firstly, the dining room. This is where Mum would show off her cooking prowess, regularly demonstrating she could cook for 50 people, even if only 12 were turning up for dinner. And at the heart of Daisy Farm was the kitchen. She was rarely out of it. And when not cooking, it was a craft room, flower arranging workshop, or charity collection nerve centre. There was always cake on the go, or cheese, or wanders, and if you were really lucky, a leftover and forgotten about Christmas pudding hiding at the back of the old Rayburn, along with the charity collection money that she put in there for safekeeping. She was always keen to make sure no one ever went hungry. Oh, and if you were thirsty, you could always rattle around in the back of the cupboard and find some of her legendary sloe gin. Mum was mum to anyone who walked into the house, whether they were invited or not. Let's face it, the door was never locked, and if it was, the key was only ever under the donkey. Even when I wasn't there anymore, my friends would still use the house as a staging post for parties and nights out, and a venue for wonder making lessons. Mum never turned anybody away, she loved a lively house. She cared for everyone and everything. I remember a time in 2008, about the same time as she was recovering from a stroke, when a serious fire broke out at Broadlands that destroyed it. Mum was distressed that because of her physical condition that she couldn't be at the parish hall helping make teas and coffees for the victims, as others had done for her and my grandfather when a serious fire had broken out here at Daisy Farm in the 70s. Mum always encouraged both myself and Sarah to travel and be adventurous. Growing up, I was always allowed a fairly free rein. I would be found running around the fields or building tree houses or playing with fire. Mum was pretty happy, provided I came back running when she called, "Daniel, dinner!" Apparently her cry could be heard from nearly a quarter of a mile away at Bradford Farm, where I sometimes would be. Another personal memory is it's fair to say she and her friend Margie Barrett are to blame for my paragliding obsession. Saturdays would be spent at the Poplars Tea Room and then onto the Poulant to watch the hang gliders. I was hooked on the idea of free flight from an early age, and I put the blame squarely on those two. Her fight and determination is something she instilled in me from an early age. I can, I will, I must, and there's no such thing as can't were her mantras for life. She had a quirky, irreverent and damn right mischievous sense of humour, and that's safe to say it's something she's passed down from me. For instance, she would find it hilarious that I've managed to work into part one of her eulogy, part two will be along shortly, that I've managed to work in a shot of her sloe gin in a Methodist church. Well, sorry Christine. Mum taught me many values. Compassion, to care, to try and see things from the other person's point of view, to name but a few. She was the matriarch of the family and always leading by example. We don't get to choose our parents, but if I could have, I wouldn't have wanted any others. So thank you, Mum, and thank you, Dad.